All right, welcome everyone to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thanks so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community mentorship and learning. I'm your host, Dave Nava. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host, or in this case, co-host, to take part in the conversation so we can leverage their experience, their expertise, and of course, their unique perspectives. The focus for tonight's session is exploring careers with Mulesoft. So, if you've ever wondered what exactly Mulesoft is, how and when it's used, and what career paths are available, this is the session for you. I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight's session. John Butterfield, Ken Carey, who'll be showing up in about 30 minutes or so, Fournier, and Michael McCammon. John is an enterprise account executive at Mulesoft and a military trailblazer. Prior to Mulesoft, he worked at Siemens as a technical account manager and an OEM account manager. And before Siemens, John served for over 10 years in the Navy as an aviator. Ken is a solutions architect at Mulesoft. He's been in the tech industry for over 30 years, working for a number of notable companies as a software engineer, product design manager, consultant, and architect. Dre is a senior account executive at Mulesoft and a military trailblazer. He began his professional career in the Army, serving for 8 years as a special operations integrator. After transitioning, Dre worked as a site lead, PMO lead, and most recently as an account executive and consultant. And Michael is a customer success manager at Mulesoft. He's been in the program management and tech industries for over 20 years, working as a consultant, program manager, branch chief for the Department of State, and division chief for the Defense Information Systems Agency prior to Mulesoft. It is awesome having you all here coasting office hours with me. Welcome. If you could each just take a moment and further introduce yourselves and share your Salesforce stories, that would be great. Jonathan, would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, absolutely. How long are you looking for? I can keep it brief, but
I don't know, three to 5 minutes.
yeah, sure. John Butterfield. I'm based here out of the beautiful Norfolk, Virginia. I started off, did just shy of 11 years in the Navy as a 60 Romeo pilot, and looking to get out of the Navy, thinking like, of course, I'm just going to go into project management and you get a government job, use the clearance that I have, and that's going to be my life from here on out. But I'll be home with my kids every night at least. And had a headhunter come to me and say, "Have you ever thought about sales?" And I had never ever considered that, but I ended up going through the interview process and got hired by Siemens, German company, in the manufacturing space, and I was selling automation components to factories, manufacturers all around Virginia, and they had actually become a Salesforce customer. So, I don't think any salesperson necessarily is going to love CRM. And then we moved over to Salesforce and started incorporating that, and I was like, man, this stuff's really cool. And long story that I'll spare you from, where it just felt like time to move on and start looking at top of every list that I looked at. For best IT companies to work for, best software companies to work for, Salesforce was at the top. And so I actually came into the environment knowing very little about Salesforce, except for my user experience and truly little about MuleSoft. But the opportunity was open for the Navy and Marine Corps job. So I'm the account exec for Navy and Marine Corps, and interviewed for that. And a year and a half later, here I am.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, John. Michael, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. So Michael McCammon. So I started my career in IT back in 1999. I was actually a contractor for U.S. Postal Service. Just did that for about 8 years and just decided, I think maybe I can make a better difference if I move into an actual government position. And ended up getting a job with U.S. Postal Service, was an IT specialist at the time. Did that stint for a little while, ended up joining the Department of State in 2011. While I was there, we ended up becoming kind of a Salesforce customer. We had just started bringing them on board. I went to Dreamforce and just thought, man, this company is amazing. This is just the energy here on the software and the people and everything was just amazing. So ended up leaving Department of State, went over to Defense Information Systems Agency, was there, during the pandemic. Ended up going fully remote like most people did. And, there was talk about kind of bringing teams back in and kind of ending those remote jobs. During all that, my wife and I relocated from Maryland to Poland, South Carolina, where we are now. And I was like, I can't go back to the DC area. I can't do the commute thing again. So reconnected with some individuals who were my Oracle sales guys when I was at State. They joined Mulesoft and said, "Hey, you know, if you think about coming over," and it actually worked out great for me because when I left Dreamforce, I told my wife at the time I could totally see myself leaving the government for this company. You know, it's awesome. You know, and MuleSoft was in that suite of at the time they just purchased MuleSoft, and so just made the leap and came on over. So basically ended up doing about 12 years in federal service and joined the MuleSoft team, and just really happy I made the move. It's a great company, good people to work with, and you've been working with Jonathan and Dre for a while now, and just happy to be here.
Awesome. That's a great story. Dre, over to you.
All right, thank you. And thank you again for having me here. And I'm always happy to talk to folks that, you know, are either in the military or looking to transition. You know, I have a lot of conversations with not only my friends that are still in the military and looking to get out, but also with those that are struggling to find positions outside of the military. And that can be very difficult because I've been there, I've done it. I did 13 deployments while I was in the military, in addition to outside of the military as well as a civilian contractor. So I'm no stranger to being away from home. Although I'm in a sales position and I still travel a lot, it's nowhere near what it was before, you know. So I have sentiment in that sense, in the sense that, you know, I missed my first child's birth. Second child, I actually was able to be there because I, you know, came back home from Turkey, where I was a part of the Special Operations Liaison Officers at the U.S. Embassy over in Turkey. I went through the coup there. That was actually my 5th day on the job. You know, I went through the Turkish coup back in, I think it was like 2015 or something like that. I don't remember, but I've had a lot of really interesting experiences in and outside of the military. But that transition when I came out of the military and I went into aerospace and defense and data analytics was a quite tough one, because very similar to John's story, where he talked about, you know, getting out of the military and going straight into you know, a government job and just, you know, finishing out your time as a government servant. You know, I thought that was my path as well, but then, you know, you get sidetracked in life and you start, you know, kind of changing directions in different ways. And then, you know, I became a product manager at my previous company alongside, I had like 5 different jobs at my previous company. But my biggest advice to anyone that's in the military, looking to transition or looking to get into technology, that's Salesforce and anyone else in the industry, is try to volunteer for as much as possible. It's kind of like being in the military, where you get to learn other people's jobs, you get to learn from other people. That is the environment that you have here. The Ohana, and I'm pretty sure that you probably heard of it, is that family environment that you feel within Salesforce, and that connected experience, not only in the products, but also as individuals. And I learned from Michael, I learned from John, I learned from Ken. You know, Ken always, it's funny, Ken is my solutions engineer, and I love him to death. And he's like one of the most busiest people in the world. But he goes above and beyond what I would deem like one of the best people that I've ever worked with. And that's like the culture that you find at Salesforce. And that's what drew me to Salesforce. I never had experience in anything related to Salesforce. I had a lot of experience in integration, but what drew me was the culture and the people. The people is the most important part to me. Well, anyway, that's all I had to say. Initially, pleasure to meet you all, and I'm looking forward to how I can help with some questions. Over to you, David.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dre. And I can definitely identify with that. I often tell folks that I came for the tech, but I stayed for the community, because it really is. It's a different environment, and it's different than the military culture and that feeling of camaraderie. But I will say it's the closest thing that I've found to it, where everyone just kind of looks out for one another. So it's a pretty amazing place to be. But thank you all for those introductions, and for those of you who have just joined, Ken will be joining us here in a few moments. He's as Dre mentioned, he's a hard worker. He's on a customer call right now, but he'll be with us shortly. All right. So what I always like to do before we launch into it is kind of go over the purpose of office hours for those who may be joining for the first time. So if you are here for the first time, welcome. I always like to briefly explain the purpose of office hours. And so these sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers and allies. Everyone is welcome to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics. in order to help you achieve your professional development and career-related goals. So for this next hour, this is your opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Absolutely everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and both ask and answer questions from your perspective, which will provide that rich dialogue and hopefully more information to the answers given. So keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session. As you've probably already seen, we tend to chat back and forth pretty regularly. I will also be posting things that I kind of pull from LinkedIn throughout the week, employment opportunities, knowledge articles, things of that nature. If you want to ask a question at any point during today's session, please do so. This is your session. If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, no worries. Just post it in chat. I'll ask it for you. And I will do my best throughout today's session to be looking for hands raised as well as those questions in chat. And if I miss one, call me out on it because it's not intentional. Finally, before we get started, tonight's session is being recorded. So if you want to share an attribution-free comment that you don't want anyone else to hear about later on YouTube, let me know before speaking and I can go ahead and make sure that is edited out of the final recording. All right, so we will kick it off. And what I'd like to do is just begin with the beginner's mindset, which is something that we do at Mulesoft, at Slack, at Salesforce, and set the stage and provide context. So gents, if you could explain what Mulesoft is, broad brush, and how it fits within the larger Salesforce product strategy, or I think that'll get everyone on the same page and provide a good foundation for tonight's session.
I'll take the first one. What the heck? I'll go for it. And then Dre and John, they can chime in where I miss. But so Mulesoft in general, so we are basically we are a holistic solution for integrations. We're like a one platform to manage, develop, deploy, govern APIs, across an enterprise. And where we fit in, and that's super high level, right? We have several different deployment options as well too. So we are a cloud-based solution, but we do offer options where you can run a hybrid solution where you have our runtime engines that basically run our APIs on premise. And then you can use our cloud offering to kind of manage and control all those. So we break it down into a control plane and then a runtime management plane. And then also too, we just have a fully on-prem solution. So we kind of have a different niche. We are cloud-based, but then we do offer some other deployment models. And then where we kind of fit in a overall, Salesforce suite of products per se. I think when you Salesforce, it's Salesforce, Mulesoft, Tableau, and Slack. For us, it's integrations. We can integrate anything, anywhere, at any time, so to speak. We also have broadened our horizons into robotic process automation. We bought a company and brought that into Mulesoft's fold, and we have a very robust way to kind of design and build automations through basically a kind of a flow designer type of interface. So we can connect systems to Salesforce, connect legacy systems, pretty agnostic. We connect ERP systems, et cetera. So in terms of when you think of Salesforce, we're that backbone that can help move all the data around. We're definitely the mule, the workhorse. Not probably the sexiest product within the suite of all the Salesforce tools, but we get a lot done and a lot of important data for a lot of big customers and important customers. And I'll let Dre and John chime in where I might have missed.
Do you mind if I go, John?
Go for it.
All right. You guys are familiar with these, right? These are all driven by APIs. You touch an API every single day, probably more than you think. You get on Facebook, you go on Instagram, all of that connectivity that happens between multiple systems that are working in tandem with one another. Whenever you do a single sign-on between one system and another system, where you log on to, say, to your Gmail, and it's asking you if you want to connect outside of Gmail to use your specific information within Gmail to create an account or to create a connectivity, whether it be an Activision account to play Call of Duty, to signing up for some sort of services that are out there that that are relevant to you, or using any one of your multiple applications that you have on your devices on your phone. APIs are everywhere. They're the means for connecting between multiple systems. So I work in aerospace and defense, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples here of real world, some of the issues that I see quite frequently across large organizations like your Lockheed Martins of the world to General Dynamics and others is it's primarily has to do with the connected experiences that you have with not only business systems, but you get to do some cool things to where you might be able to, you know, provide connectivity to a project that touches an aircraft like an F-35. You get to experience the full life cycle of being able to take information that directly feeds into the manufacturing process of certain pieces, polymers, all kinds of different types of manufacturing components. All of that has a data transfer that happens in between because you have machine to machine information. You have trade partners to where you might have an organization that is looking to communicate with other partners throughout. I have an organization that has 240 trading partners. And in order for them to send information to their trading partners, imagine having to do that by emails when you're receiving 5,000 orders a day. You know, that requires an army of individuals. And the thing is that right now, tech is going through a lot of attrition in certain places. And a lot of these companies are looking to cut costs and make things more efficient. And that's where Salesforce collectively, Mulesoft specifically, really comes into play. Because if you think about build before buy, or build instead of buying, where you have a lot of organizations that are choosing to buy technology, you actually incur a lot of technical debt. You have a lot of systems that are not talking to one another. You have two financial systems that you have to create a spreadsheet for this, create a spreadsheet for that, then merge it together. You think that it's easier said than done and just create a pivot chart and make it all come together, but it's not that easy. I have a customer that they spend about $500,000 a quarter just merging two spreadsheets together. It's a deep spreadsheet. But that right there is the cusps of what we bring to the table in terms of Mulesoft and how we create connected experiences. Not only do we bridge systems, but we bridge people as well. John.
Yeah, I love that, Dre. You put that very well, better than I could. But even thinking like creature comforts, right? You want to call a cab, or you go to your favorite chicken restaurant and you want to be able to, order it. You pull into the space. The kitchen knows your space number, even sending that data up to an ERP, or even having APIs run into IoT devices like the smart fryer saying demand is increasing. We want to bump the temperature up. And then, for me, just coming from a non-technical background and learning maybe some of the evolution of what enterprise IT looks like and the old heavyweight monolithic players. And when you're within the walls of one software suite, certainly there are integration challenges, but each provider, each company is going to want to be able to make that easy within the walls. Well, the game has changed, and you look at the application network, and enterprises want to use best in breed for each different function. If that's a data lake, or if that's for HR, if that's for healthcare, 401k. And I know if you're a Salesforce employee, you look at our login screen and it's just tiles of all these different best in breed products that we use for our own internal functions. They're all integrated via modern API. And the difference with Mulesoft is we are not doing that with like really tight point-to-point connections. We have, and not to get too in-depth technical, just ways of abstracting that data, centering it at the API level on your business processes. So I don't care where that information lives anymore. I have my API for order or for logistics or for fulfillment, whatever it might be. And when I have a new service that I want to bring in, a new app, a new website, I don't have to go back to the system of record anymore. So that's all that I'll add.
Yeah, that's great. That provides a nice broad overview of what Mulesoft is and what it does. Just to kind of expand upon that a little bit, what's the most popular use case you would say that most customers ask for when they look to Mulesoft? Like, what do you end up selling Mulesoft the most to support?
That's an interesting
Or is
question.
it a broad mix of just like everything, really?
Well, you started the business, and it goes with mergers and acquisitions. That, for me, in my particular domain, that's the big one. Then when you expand from there, you might be looking at, integrating with weapon systems. You might have some edge computing that you're trying to do. You might, you might be part of a really cool use cases where I've actually, have the opportunity to work a particular use case where we're doing the connectivity of an actual satellite, to where we're leveraging the space cloud for this particular organization, to where we're providing the connectivity to special mission aircraft. And then we're really creating the full spectrum of not only ground integration, but also air and sea and land. I mean, it's all over the place. So you get to really experience the ability to actually solve some of the hardest problems that are out there. And it all starts with connectivity. And it's interesting because ever since I came to this company, I've heard every single conversation that we have. It's very hard to have a conversation without saying the word integration, because it's a big part of it. In order for you to actually understand the bigger picture and how things fit together, you have to have a level of integration. Elio, you have a question?
Yeah, more so of a comment, just to give people some context. Like I work in a different group at Salesforce, and all of my clients that I engage with, they have multiple technical teams, and they have what's known as a technology stack, meaning that they have multiple ERP systems, databases that have to be integrated so they can have my specialty Service Cloud, right? So their people can work in a concise manner. And yeah, Mulesoft is something that allows a lot of our clients that I work with to have success, right? Salesforce is not just a platform. It's also, think of it as single pane of glass, like a screen, right? You might be looking at data from multiple systems. And because you have awesome people like Drew, it all happens in the back end, and people sometimes don't even realize that they're looking at data from not only different systems, but from different parts of the world. Right, Drew?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Awesome.
And Michael, did you want to comment on the security question? I'm happy to take a stab at it because I'm quite technical for an account executive, but go for it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Well, one thing, I'll hit the security question real quick, is going to pull on Elio's thread. And also use case. So I straddle two kind of worlds at Mulesoft. So I'm federal, civilian, and DoD. So I've got like Army and Navy accounts and defense with Dre. And then on the other side, I've got Department of State. I've got, federal health. The biggest use case that Mulesoft ends up really spying, and this is what I actually, when I was a government employee, looked to Mulesoft for, was modernization, right? Like, because when you stand up something new, in the old waterfall ways, you'll create a new program and a project, and that's got its own schedule, and then they could spin up an entire different program and project and schedule for integrations. Now you got these two things going on at once that just don't dovetail together. So a product like Mulesoft can take things like mainframe systems, connect them to new front ends, new experiences for users, and allow that organization to modernize quicker and deliver faster without having to sunset those old systems. And eventually, when they do sunset those old systems, all they do is update the API. They don't have to like refactor a bunch of stuff and build like all new things and new integrations. They're just basically pointing that API to a new place. So that's kind of the big use case I see on the federal side. And then how do we ensure security, to Andrea's question? So Mulesoft secures at each layer, right? So we basically have policies and governance in place within the Anypoint platform. Our runtime servers, we have done a lot in terms of meeting DISA STIG requirements, in terms of, meeting, how those STIGs are laid down. We also run FIPS compliancy, et cetera. So we do a lot on the front of making sure that our APIs are secure. We have, when you're doing a hybrid deployment from runtimes that are on-prem out to those, to our GovCloud or Cloud Hub servers, we support VPN connections. We support, that secured socket layer connectivity, certificate exchange, et cetera. So our team does a lot in terms of ensuring that at every layer. So in the Mulesoft, kind of in our stack, we do APIs at an experience, a process, and a system layer, and every one of the layers you can install policies, install layers of security. So the team does a really good job at securing the platform. If Ken was here, he could get like really deep into all that stuff. But bottom line is we spend a lot of time ensuring, especially with a product that has to serve the federal government. So our GovCloud instance, is FedRAMP at this point in time. It's FedRAMP. I believe it's moderate, and we're headed for FedRAMP high in a couple of years. So we're in DoD speak, it's IL2 right now, but we're looking to achieve IL5 in the next couple of years. So a lot goes into that, into our security. Hopefully that answers your question, Andrea.
I think as well, like you look at any savvy architect is going to have a system diagram, and there's not another platform like Mulesoft where you really in the platform can look at that system diagram, and you can see each API and like, how am I doing identity? How am I securing the connections between each of these levels? And that's the whole governance piece, and also the monitoring. Like I can click on an API and I can see how many calls it has, like if that's above or below the expected level. I can set up alerting based on that. And then certainly I'm have a little cheat sheet here, but just all providers that we have for single sign-on, and then all the OAuth client providers, the OpenAM, Ping Federate, OpenID Connect, Azure Client Management. So anything further than that, we certainly would bring in an engineer.
Awesome. That was pretty deep. So I think we're covered. I wanted to move on. So now that we kind of know what Mulesoft is, I want to talk about enablement and how prospective Mulees can go, where they can go to learn more about Mulesoft products. And then from there, we can touch on certifications as well, because every week we take questions in LinkedIn prior to the session, and that's where a lot of those questions centered around was enablement. Where can I go to learn more? So let me start with that one. Can you share kind of any places folks can go to get more up to speed with products and learn more about what Mulesoft does?
It's interesting, David, because where I learn a lot about Mulesoft outside of our internal resources, which are insanely robust, which is awesome. But if I was looking from the outside in, I would say that YouTube is a great source of information. I'll tell you what, if you go on Google and you put in Mulesoft plus any keyword, if you're interested in learning more about a particular product, we have a lot of white papers that are out there that are specific to integrating business to business, integrating EDI with other companies and stuff. And we also put out a yearly report on integrations and just writ large across the industry, where we sit in the industry, along with our methodology for the future, future products and stuff. All that stuff is out there on our website. Our website is a huge repository of information, along with, and it's also thought leadership as well, because that's important, highly important in this particular industry, because there's a lot going on. And although products are important to us, it's also important for you to realize that there's a vision out there in creating a composable enterprise. So we do a lot of educating, and YouTube is a good place to find a lot of videos, alongside with, I know I'm part of Mulesoft communities on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of information that is posted on LinkedIn. There's actually, if you look up on YouTube or on LinkedIn for Mulesoft communities, you'll be able to actually interact with other folks throughout the world. A lot of our clients and a lot of our industry partners are actually contributing to the Mulesoft community. So those are other resources, alongside with, if you really want to get your hands dirty, go to training.mulesoft.com. And what you can do there is you can actually work off of a sandbox environment and actually teach yourself how to integrate with Mulesoft, alongside with very high level information off of your Trailhead. You can do that, but I think that if you go to training.mulesoft.com and you can self-teach yourself there, that's a great place for you to leverage as a resource. I know Michael and I work hand in hand all the time with trying to structure training for a lot of our clients, our existing clients and future clients. So Michael, if you had any other things to add, because that's definitely a customer success focused thing that you typically take care of, I'll pass it over to you for some additional insights.
Cool. Thanks, Dre. Yeah, so in the chat, I just dropped a couple links, right? So Dre's spot on. you can just Google something. We have a ton of YouTube videos out there, but we also have a video series called the Friends of Max video series. So we have, videos on, it's like videos.mulesoft.com, but some of the videos are just very like kind of, commercially salesy stuff, but the Friends of Max videos are just, they will get you hands on and they're very quick, like, 10, like anywhere between an 8 to 12 minute type of video using the platform, setting different things up. That's probably a little bit after you've gotten your feet wet. But to kind of like Dre said, to his point, if you go to, training.mulesoft.com, we have about 3 free self-paced virtual courses that you can take. They're all hands-on. You can get in there and just, set up a trial org, work through all the different exercises at your own pace. There's 3. It's like kind of an intro, and then a fundamentals, and then like an intro to our robotic process automation offerings. Those are great ways to really get introduced to the platform. And then developer.mulesoft.com, that's an awesome thing too. If anybody's looking to, they want to get into the developer role, it's literally starts you from, step 1. Here, you're going to build a Hello Mule app instead of like Hello World. You're going to build a Hello Mule app, and it will just walk you right down the line. And then, also too, there's some instructions in there how to set up a trial org and, kind of set up these sandbox orgs. The good thing about, our environment, the way we offer it, you can create as many of those trial accounts as you want, and they're good for 30 days each. And you can just keep creating trial accounts over and over again to just keep learning and keep growing and keep enriching yourself. The only thing you have to really do is create a new username, a distinct username each time. You can use the same email address, but just create yourself a new username each time. But those are awesome resources as well. I probably have, tons of other things. I can actually, David, if you like, I can share with you. I've got kind of a 1 slider that has a links to it, like a bunch of different places, self-paced, self-enablement. I can get that to you, and you can share that out with the folks on the call when you want. Yeah, so I'll get you a little bit. And then we also too have I've got a nice, like a slide. You mentioned certifications, right? So currently today we have a certification tracks for architects and developers. We don't have a certification track for ops at this point in time. We have a developer certification level 1 and 2. 2 just recently came out a couple of months ago, and then our Mulesoft architect certification. But I can give you a slide as well too that kind of shows everyone the path of how to get to those certifications and the courses you would need to take. Because once you get past the free self-paced stuff, you have to start paying for those training courses. They're very helpful if you do want to do certification, but just kind of well worth it. So I'll get some stuff over to you, David, after the call, and you can share that out with everyone.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And that was you guys just answered like the next 2-3 questions, which is phenomenal to kind of cover the whole broad range of enablement. The other question was, how do you get hands-on? And you brought up the mulesoft.training.com. So that link is in the chat, and be sure to head over there as well. Obviously, there's Trailhead out there. So there's several trails on robotic process automation where I don't think you can actually get hands-on with the trails, but it'll at least tell you about them. But I believe you can get hands-on with Mulesoft Composer, which is pretty cool. And then just to piggyback on that, because I was checking it out today, if you're wondering where the Mulesoft certification paths are, aside from the website, they're also on Trailhead. If you go to certifications and you scroll to the bottom, that's where you'll see Slack as well as Mulesoft and Tableau. And they just came out. I think you guys just came out with Integration Associate, which I haven't looked at it extensively, but it looks like maybe one of those stepping stone certs to before you become a developer and an architect.
Yeah. It's just a newer offering for sure. I probably have to dig in that one a little bit more, but it's kind of just trying to get their feet wet. I think that's kind of the path to the individuals who want to go down the Composer road, and then the RPA kind of road, get that offering. So.
Yeah, it seems like it's a trend with Salesforce lately. They have the Salesforce Associate certification path now as well, which is pretty cool to kind of give folks that initial point to jump to if they're just kind of dipping their toes and maybe they're not ready for Mulesoft developer and or Salesforce admin. So with regard to being an account exec or being a customer success manager, are certifications recommended? Because I think a couple of you mentioned that you're not necessarily technical, but you can speak to the technical, to technical topics to an extent. What certifications would you recommend, if any, if folks are interested in becoming an account exec or a customer success manager with Mulesoft?
So to be honest, I think in the roles that we play, the developer's probably not the most forefront, but the integration architect track that we have is probably more into our swim lane, because the big thing that we try to focus on with our customers, and Dre and John can weigh into, but for my role, so as a customer success manager, it's a more strategic role. It's meant to, so once, a customer buys our product and they have it in house, my goal is to make sure that they get the most out of it, right? So that they implement an API strategy, that they're, kind of following our methodology, and they're not just letting stuff sit on the shelf and not use it, right? We try to keep people focused on less tactical and more strategic. Now, sometimes people have to get the platform up and get it running and do some tactical integrations, but we try to keep them more focused on that long-term goal, right? Implement a strategy that will enable you to go faster, quicker, promote reuse of assets. So if I develop a SharePoint API within Lockheed Martin, not every business group in Lockheed Martin, they don't need to develop that SharePoint API. They can use the one that we built, right? So it's more of that, and that having that, the understanding the architecture and the philosophy of Mulesoft is probably more important, and like I would say in my role, and possibly John and Dre's, but for that, right? But then obviously people who just want to get introduced to the platform, kind of want to get their feet wet, they want to be like a solutions engineer like Ken is. I would say it's definitely more that developer role to the forefront, and then the architect kind of comes behind it. But I'll let Dre and John play into.
Yeah, I don't know what the audience is, what kind of roles you're looking to get into. I came in with nothing, and I think for the sales AE role, it certainly would have been beneficial for me to come in with more of a background understanding. But what I always try to get at with prospects, with customers, is Mulesoft's a business decision. It's about like moving fast, providing governance, providing flexibility, and then building an architecture that you can change going into the future. And on the sales side, there's pretty robust enablement for what we're doing and how we try to zero in on problems within our different accounts, and how we talk to CIOs and CDOs, other data leaders within these organizations. So, I always we stay away from, not run away from the technical conversations, but that can be a blocker many times. So it is a business decision to solve these technical business kind of problems. Dre, what are your thoughts here?
Sure. So my thoughts are, so I'm just technical by nature because I just love technology. But in this position, I would say if you want a resource that would really help you in a position like, in understanding the technology and what APIs are, what a RESTful API is, such and such. I know that LinkedIn actually has great courses that you can sign up for a trial for like 30 days and then take their quizzes. And what's great is that you can actually post that as a skills quiz, or like a verified skill on LinkedIn, and having that on your profile actually goes a long way. Because if you look at a lot of these technology companies, like they go to LinkedIn first, and they go and they validate your experience on LinkedIn. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date and it's got all the keywords that you want your potential employer in the future to look at. So I would give that as a recommendation. On the same token, I've had integration experience before I came to the company, but thinking like if I didn't have any integration experience, I would take those free courses that are available alongside anything that you can find on Trailhead that'll give you a leg up on inexperience and understanding how to talk to folks. Because it's all, this job here as an account executive, it's all about communication, is understanding people, how to read a room, how to be succinct in the way that you talk, and just making good rapport very quickly. Because that's the biggest part of the job, is that although the technical part is important, most of my conversations that I have with leaders, both C-level and below, have all started with rapport building at the beginning. So if you come in with a positive mindset, a positive attitude, and you present yourself in the way that you want to be perceived, then you'll do really well in these types of positions as a salesperson.
Awesome, that's a great background. And to kind of continue with that, diving into the individual roles and responsibilities, Larry's got a couple questions. So Larry, while Dre was chatting, I looked up the integration associate, and I believe it is like Salesforce Associates, that it's that initial stepping stone to some of the more complex certifications. And so the summary on Trailhead says that the credential holder should be able to work as an informed member of a Mulesoft project team with knowledge of core integration and API-led connectivity, terminology, and concepts. So kind of further underscoring it's having a knowledge base within Mulesoft, and then if you want to actually go configure and code Mulesoft, then you go on to those other certs. The other question Larry had, and it comes back to the individual roles and responsibilities, is for the sales role, is there a sales methodology you use like Sandler?
I dropped that in chat. We follow the Challenger methodology, and I'm not sure how closely compared to other sales orgs we do that, but that's part of the onboarding process that we did, was that Challenger course.
Gotcha. And Larry's question is prescient, because I was actually just getting ready to dive into some questions of my own. So the one that I would have kind of account AE or account executive focused is, how do you sell the product given its technical nature and its focus on development, and who are your typical, your customers, your buyers? How do you find them? Like, what's that process look like?
It's all driven by titles, in my opinion. So usually the target audience is the director of IT applications. Sometimes you might deal with software engineers that have multiple hats that they wear depending on the size of the company. But usually it's that director of IT apps, and then with a direct line to the chief information officer. The chief information officer is typically the decision maker in these processes, and in some instances, it'll fall under the chief technology officer in terms of the final decision as to whether they proceed with a certain strategy or a procurement of Mulesoft technology. But that validation happens 2 to 3 layers under that. So you have a demand plan to where you ensure that you understand what the requirements of the customers are. That's your use case development. That's your project scoping. And another thing that you can potentially do as well is, so I'm a project manager by trade. I've been a project manager for many years, and actually my concentration in my MBA is actually project management. So if you do manage to get your PMP, that's actually some really good, it's really good training, because I actually tend to use a lot of my PMP experience, my project management experience at Mulesoft, along with being extremely organized, because that's a big portion of the job as well, in addition to the conversations.
Awesome.
Hey, Ken.
Jonathan, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. Hi, Ken.
Oh, hey. Sorry it's late. I was just jumping out of a customer meeting, so I'm happy to be here, and good job, Dre, sharing some of the information.
Yeah, I think, Dave, the only thing I'd add would be in the DoD, things are a lot different. So this is only going to be applicable to those who are pursuing that sort of thing. But like I always like to bring up the Bezos API mandate from 2002, and you can Google that. There's a whole list of things that he said. The last thing was like, you follow this or else you get fired. You're not going to work in my company anymore. The DoD doesn't have that luxury. So they put out, there's a lot of guidance that comes out, but when you look at federal employment and the ability to basically mandate, this is the way that we're going to do things, it's a lot different within the government. So in the Navy, I'm always looking for like what hurts, what at an enterprise level hurts right now? Like, what's the thing that we can't do? Where's the interoperability problem? Who cares about it? Who has the voice to be able to change things? And hopefully the budget as well. But if the problem's big enough, the budget will show up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for providing that extra clarification.
I apologize if this was said before. There's an element to that I think sometimes becomes a challenge, right? Part of the value that we're bringing with those API-led approaches that John was mentioning, and taking the approach to do these things, is that a lot of the value comes from the long-term benefit, not just from the immediate benefit. But a lot of the teams that are implementing a project are really only looking at, hey, how do I get my project done? I got to come in on time. I got to come in on budget. I got to deliver this functionality. And they're not so much worried about when they're done, how much benefit they've provided for future projects, right? Or how much they've increased the overall capability of the environment, because they're only concerned with and only being judged on how well they came in with their one project, right? In that kind of narrow-minded perspective. So one of the challenges that comes in is, thinking about this and approaching these things in a way that says, hey, wait a minute, you want a series of projects that you're going to do to be greater than the sum of its parts, right? You want all those projects to come together and create a comprehensive whole or a comprehensive benefit that's greater than just the results of each one of the projects, because they're feeding off each other. And that's not always easy to do, right? There's a lot of things you need to do to help make that obvious and to help show why, as an individual, people in that project care, right? Why do I care if it's something that I'm not going to do that benefits me? Most people are good-hearted in nature. They want to do the right thing, but they don't want to do it at the expense of sacrificing their current project. And that sometimes takes a little bit of guidance and encouragement to make sure that they understand that that's what they're doing. So sorry, thanks for, hope I didn't take us too far off base on that one.
No, that's great, Ken. I appreciate it. And you definitely have to take the long view and not just focus on the near term when considering your needs. And we'll go ahead and stay with you, Ken, because we were just diving into the roles, and we got about 10 minutes left. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask at least one question about how you support customers at Mulesoft. And so we dove in a little bit to the AE role, but Ken, how would you say that you support customers at Mulesoft in your current role? What are some of the things that you do?
Sure. Well, I'm the solution engineer. So if you kind of use the technical definition of my job description, is my role is to remove any technical objections, if you will, to the idea of what we're doing, to address any technical concerns so that there's no technical reason why they shouldn't be able to achieve their results or use our product for what we do. Now, in terms of supporting them, it's how do we say, a part of it is to sit there and say, hey, let me become a partner. I don't know if we've talked about partnership versus vendorship, but the idea is to go in and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not here to sell you a piece of software. I'm here to help make sure you are successful, right? And whatever I need to do is what I'm going to do to help make sure you're successful. Because it does me no good if you have buyer's remorse or, regret tomorrow, and it doesn't you do any good either. So, if I want to maintain a good long-term reputation and have you recommend me to others, I take the approach and say, hey, wait a minute, let me be a trusted advisor. Let me think of me as somebody who's on your team who has your best interest at heart. And I know sometimes it's hard to build that trust, right? No, you're just trying to sell me something, but the answer is no, I'm not. I don't have a transactional view of our relationship. Our relationship is not a transaction or a couple of transactions. Our relationship is exactly that. It's a relationship that's going to go for a while, and I'm going to reap the benefits of that relationship. If I want to think about it in selfish ways, I'm going to reap the benefits of that relationship, not because I sold you something, that's maybe part of it, but because you've recommended me to other people. Because now you're saying, hey, Ken was this great guy, and you should call Ken when you have a problem, right? When you need to resolve this technical issue. So I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of the general approach. And also hopefully smart enough to realize that I can't solve it all, that I need to rely on my teammates, that there are things I can't do. And so keeping a relationship with my teammates and other parts within Mulesoft, I think is critical to my success, because there's just no way I as an individual can handle everything all the time. And so that becomes a big part of doing right by my customer, also means doing right by my teammates so that they're there to help me when my customer needs that help. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Great points, Ken. Selling is definitely a team sport. And I appreciate the trusted advisor comments. So what I would like to do now is I'd like to pivot back to Michael. And Michael, I know we talked briefly about customer success and what you do as a CSM, but if you could just provide a bit more deeper dive into some of the day-to-day activities that you undertake to support customers, Mulesoft customers.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So it's kind of funny. So I often describe myself, what Ken said, trusted advisor, right? So I try to be that for our customers post sale. So Ken, I would say, I mean, he's definitely way more technical than me. Let's get real, but he's definitely on the front side of getting people to understand, and trust and rely on Mulesoft, right? That we have their best interests at heart. And I'm on the back side of that, right? So I come in post sales and just try to make sure that they get the most out of the product. They bought this product because they believed in it, because these guys, sold this awesome thing to them. And I can say right now, I believed in the product before I came over. So I was the division chief for integrations at Department of State. So IT and integrations have been in my background for a long time. But my thing is to make sure that as customers start standing up the platform, they stand it up right. If they need some resources to help them with that, I reach out to different team members. We have a technical group of people that I work with. They're called Customer Success Strategy and Architecture team. Some of them are more strategic advisor and strategic architects. But in general, I make sure that our customers can stand the platform up right, scale it properly, start to implement their strategy in the right way, that they get enablement, they get the training they need, get their teams trained, kind of help them with onboarding, help them through security issues, security documentation, even if they have a problem. I mean, I have customers that have, been around for a long time, and they might have an issue pop up and they have to open up a support ticket, and that support ticket might get stuck. I'll jump in there and try to help them shake that loose, right? Maybe reach out to some of my other team members. I'll rely on Ken too and get his opinion on the problem they might be having to see how we can help them. So it's definitely trying to stay, become their partner. Like Ken said, be that trusted advisor, make sure that they can rely on me and that they believe in the product and they get the most out of that product. They just, ultimately need to be successful. I coming from the federal space, the challenges that my customers face, I lived through, I faced them, I dealt with it, and having a product like Mulesoft and being able to help them through that it's rewarding for me, because I can get them to that next step, get them past that hump in the modernization roadmap onto a better way of living and a better way of implementing their systems and serving the American people, really. So
awesome. Thanks, Michael, for your perspective. I appreciate that. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. I wanted to ask a couple of questions if I've got time. And they kind of stepping away from the roles and responsibilities and the enablement. I want to dive more into what it's like to work at MuleSoft. So what is it like from a company culture perspective to work at MuleSoft? And then I guess a follow-up to that would be two-part question. How does Muley culture integrate with the Ohana culture? Are they distinct? Do they, what's that like?
I mean, I don't really distinguish myself as a Muley specifically. I'm all in on Salesforce. I mean, we're all a family. We truly are. And really what drives me every single day to come into work is the people. And the people mean the world to me. And there isn't a day that I don't smile in the morning because I love what I do at MuleSoft, Salesforce collectively. It's a challenge. I'm used to challenges, especially, coming from a background of, intelligence collection and analysis. I mean, I've had to do a lot of interacting with different types of people, both good and bad. And I think that, creating an environment where everyone seems very happy to come into work, and that positive vibe and mentality across the organization, to where inclusivity is it just goes across the entire company. I think that that's what I value the most about working here. And I like that, although there is a distinction between MuleSoft and Salesforce by name, we're all a family, truly.
Yeah, one of the big things for me coming from the federal space was just transparency, communication. The top-down communication that we get, it's amazing. So in the federal space, a lot of times things are a certain way on Monday, you come in on Tuesday, they're completely different, and you had no idea it was coming, right? But here, things that changes, shift in culture, not even shift in culture, but shift in, the products or just things that might be affecting the company from a economic climate, et cetera. The company is very open about it. They have no problem letting people know what's going on. You can reach out on Slack to my boss's boss's boss, so to speak, and them a question openly, and they're willing to respond. So some of that ranking that you get very used to in the federal space, where a GS level individual can't really reach out directly to a senior executive service individual, as barriers are kind of broken here. And it's very sad. I mean, for me, it's all Salesforce. You know, we're one company, we're one Ohana. We have our different product names, but you know, we work closely with our Salesforce counterparts. I don't work with the Slack teams as much. Would like to more, but in general, you know, we deal with them a lot, and we try to share resources, share thoughts, share leads, etc. So it's a good culture.
I'll just 1 minute. I've never been in an organization that is just like as helpful. You have a problem, you have a question, reach out. And like, I don't want to paint the world's rosiest picture. There's always going to be frustrations with like, I want to get in touch with this group or this other person higher up in the org chart. I need a thing, but like those people around you, the core team, the Salesforce team, the Slack, Tableau teams, my boss, certainly echo everything said about Ken, and same with Michael. You know, the different job functions, everyone's taking ownership, and everyone's like, what can I do to help? You know, I'm looking for customer stories with these different global customers, and I go in, I figure out who the account manager is, shoot them a note, and it's like an open door. What do you want to talk about? How much time do you need? Let's do it. Let's all work together and close business. So
yeah, I'll add one thing. I don't want to be too melodramatic, but with all due respect, what I do here is how I feed my children. So you better damn well be sure that I'm going to make sure that those around me are able to do things so that I can continue to feed my children. And I know that sounds probably a little melodramatic or something like that, but I've never been in a situation where somebody just refused to help, right? It's just we support each other. That's why we call it the Ohana. And no company is perfect. Every company has its warts, but I will say this, the Mulesoft or Salesforce does not have the wart of we do not support each other. That's not one of this company's warts. You know, whatever other problems you may find somewhere in the organization, it's not that we don't support each other or that we work together to try to do the right or the best thing. So for whatever that's worth, that's how I feel, right? You know, my colleague comes to me for help. He's trying to figure out a way to feed his children. I'm certainly going to help him.
Yeah, I'll echo what some have said in chat, and I love those perspectives. That's great to hear. We've got 1 minute left. I think we probably have time for one more quick question, and I'd love to hear from each of you just to kind of close out the session. What's the thing that you love best about your job? One thing.
Oh, man, just the technology, just the coolness of it, really, you know, be able to make a difference, really.
The challenges. I love the challenges.
I can't say one, but you know, best in breed product, really cool company, people who are excited to show up. And then for me, being kind of in the heart of the Navy here in Norfolk, knowing that like I'm working towards a thing that makes our Navy better, more lethal, more capable, and it makes a better life for sailors and Marines.
What about you, Ken?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's several reasons, but probably one, having worked at several companies, is believing in what I'm doing in the big picture. I'm not here just to collect a paycheck. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe I'm helping our customers, and I believe that I can be proud of what we stand for as an organization, right? I'm not here hiding in the shadows just trying to collect a paycheck. I believe in what I do. So I guess that's an important thing to me.
Awesome. Thanks all for sharing those perspectives. We are out of time, but before we do close, I wanted to take a moment to thank Dre, John, Michael, and Ken for spending the past hour with us to talk about Mulesoft, career opportunities, enablement resources, what Mulesoft is. I've learned a ton during tonight's session. I hope you have as well. So thanks so much for that. And thank you all. Yeah. Thank you to all of you for spending time with us on your Wednesday evening, and we hope to see you back next week. In the meantime, please stay safe and have a great rest of your week.